Welcome to the HawkCast with your host, AJ Hawk.
Jerry Thornton is with me. Jerry, we were chatting off air for a minute. So, Jerry, the one question I guess I would have, like, right now, for people that don't know you, what is your title? What is your profession right now?
I, my friend, am a Barstool blogger and host of Laces Out Show. That's what I do. I continue to do stand-up comedy. I've done that on the side. I've written a book about the crappy old early days of the Patriots. I'm currently pregnant with my second book. So I guess I'm a Barstool guy. Like, that's what I'm going to try to put on that tax return where it says occupation. I'm just going to put Barstool guy. It's all I do. I don't do anything for money now that isn't just something fun that is of interest to me, which is a pretty good life position to be in.
Well, yeah, is that obviously you have a family and everything that pays well enough to sustain a family.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, and I go back to I was the fourth writer at Barstool back when we were just a newspaper that you got in the city where you get those free boxes and you pull out the real estate ads or whatever. Well, Barstool was there. It was me, Portnoy, and two other guys, and there was no money, and I knew that it would be no money, but I said, what the hell, maybe this will lead to something or whatever. And even when I started getting some money, like, I was the guy at the stool that had the boring stuff, the wife, the kids, the mortgage. I needed health insurance, so I couldn't have left my day job to go do that, until like WEEI came along, and that was the big sports station in Boston, and they offered me a full-time gig. So I left Barstool because, again, those things you got to worry about. I need a dental plan. Well, they had a dental plan, and while I was gone, Barstool took off and got bought out by a major corporation, and all of a sudden, like, God damn, there's careers over there. Like, you can actually just do that as a full-time job. So that's when I went back.
So did you reach out to them, or did they come to you when you came back?
When I was going back, here's the thing, like, I had a 2-year contract at EEI, and they were good to me. And I'd heard that the contract thing in sports media is just brutal. Maybe it's radio in general, but they're just going to dress you down and tell you they don't need you, and you're lucky to have the job, and this is all the things you're doing wrong. They did none of those things to me. Like, they said nothing but positive stuff. We just want more of you. We like what you're doing. But at the same time, I was always told, like, you needed a fallback. You know what I mean? Like, if they're gonna lowball you, if you have nothing else to go to, you're just gonna say, okay, I'll take the job. Well, I had stayed in touch with Dave. I listened to Dave on your podcast. I was on his podcast. And always felt a little bit of ownership. I don't mean like legal financial ownership, just emotional ownership to what we had helped build. So the station offered me a little raise. I mean, it was a tiny raise. And I thought, well, it's not going to kill me to just reach out to Dave, and maybe I won't hear back from him. And he got right back to me and said, so you want to, like, write about the Patriots, go full time, write about the teachers? And I said, yeah. And I named a price, and he said, okay. Like, right. I'm not kidding you. Like, there was no haggling. There was no, I'm going to try to lowball you and we'll meet in the middle. So when someone does that to you, when they just say, okay, you're a dickweed if you don't immediately say, all right, fine. I'm not going to play one off the other. And so, and actually 1 year ago today, Portnoy announced on Barstool that I was coming back. So it's kind of weird that we're talking right now. And not for a minute have I regretted it.
Wow. Was that something you had to, was your wife on board with you going back?
Let me tell you a little bit about her, because the big jump was going from my old job, which was I was working for the state, AJ. I mean, like, a job where you couldn't get fired. You had union protection. Nobody ever leaves Massachusetts state jobs. It's a total hackorama. You're in there for life. And when I came to her about the EEI offer, she said, are you crazy? Like, you have to take that. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Like, it's the radio. It's sports media. Like, people get fired all the time if the ratings aren't good. Like, what if I walk in there one day and everyone's wearing cowboy hats going, we're country now. Yeah. Like, she goes, you'll find something, but you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You should be talking about sports every day. So when I came to her about Barstool, she was like, yeah, I'm totally on board with that again, So there you go. That's why as much as I might not be the best human being in the world, I try to be as good as I can to her. Because how many wives really would do that and just say, yeah, go chase your dream. Don't be doing this boring thing that you do.
Well, that's the dream. Yeah, that's what every partner is looking for.
You like to think that, but I mean, you also get bills to pay, and you don't want to be out of work ever again. And she just didn't hesitate. Like, I was the one who was hesitating, and she said, "Go do this thing." And and the tough thing was going to be selling it to her mom. That I'm going back to Barstool, because to her, like when I was with it the first go around, she had no idea what it is. She barely understands the internet. And she's like, I think that whenever I imitate her, it's always Judge Smale's wife from Caddyshack. I hear that Jerry writes about pornography. She's like, Mom, no, he doesn't. It's an R-rated site, but it's not pornography. That's what I'm hearing. But anyway, when I explained to her what Barstool was, that, Erica Nardini is our CEO, and it's completely legit. She was on board. Like, nobody had any issues with me going back to Barstool, and God, I'm so glad I did, believe me.
So what are your duties there? Do you have a certain amount of things you have to write per week?
Yeah, no, that's the thing. But it's like this. Like, there's no one saying, here's your contractually obligated number of blogs. You have to get this many hits. But you want to earn it every day. You know what I mean? Like, I wake up and you've got this platform. You've got this forum where you can reach out to people. And like, I hate it if I take like an hour to go to lunch, because I go, what? I could be writing right now. You know what I mean? Sometimes I just go hungry, and I'm looking at the stuff that the other guys write, the guys who are all down in New York or whatever, and just going, it's so hyper competitive. Like, okay, he beat me to the punch on that one. I'm not going to get beat on that again. You know what I mean? So I imagine they're okay with what I'm doing. No one's telling me you got to do more. Where it sucks is if like you're off the grid for a couple of minutes and something happens, in my case with the Patriots, and oh my God, like I missed the ball on that. Like like the Patriots traded Jimmy Garoppolo. Where have I been? And so you really feel like you got to be plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I say that, and it's not like I'm building walls. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm digging ditches and crap. It's just, that's the nature of the job. It's that kind of pressure that is, you're so proud of the site. You want to make sure that you're getting the job done every minute of every day.
How does that work, like logistically, like just through like the technical way? Like when you say Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded and you want to write something on it, how do you not, like, what if you post something and then at almost the exact same time another guy is posting it? Does that ever happen?
It does happen, and it's sort of regulated. If it's breaking news like that, you just throw it up there. But a lot of times you'll just find something. Let's say it's not that. Let's say it's not immediate breaking news, but it's just kind of a story that is in our wheelhouse. Sometimes you'll put it on the site and you'll save it and you'll look and you'll see somebody else has already kind of gotten to it. There are some guys that just wake up earlier than I do or whatever. And sometimes our stuff gets repeated, but I don't know that anybody cares. Like a lot of times it's different takes. All right, so my focus is, say, the Patriots. We've got our Celtics guy. We've got our Baltimore Ravens guy. We've got our Mets guy or whatever. There's a few different voices doing the Patriots. So I have to feel like I don't want, say, Dave to get to a thing before I did. I learned this lesson early on when I came back. I was out having lunch and I got a text from him saying, are you going to write about the Gronk injury? I was like, what? Gronk is getting surgery? What? And had to drop everything and race home. So the price I pay now is if I go out to the friggin' dinner with my wife, I've got a laptop on my shoulder. And I explain, this is in case of a blogging emergency.
That's when you guys call it blogs. It's funny to me. I know I've had this talk with you, like on our podcast before. It's blogs, but when I hear the word blog, to me it is someone like writing their thoughts every day and posting on their Facebook page. You guys are writing like opinion pieces on things happening.
Yeah, that's fair. There probably needs to be a different term for it, because blogs began just as you're saying, a weblog. It's, I'm a mom and I'm going to write about concerns of other moms. It was basically Pinterest with words. And maybe we do need another name for it, but at the same time, we're a news, information, opinion thing. I also get that, nobody is doing it the way we do. No one's like, and in no way am I disparage and say pro football talk, but they will put a little bit of opinions in what is basically, here's news. And we just can't do that. Like, we have to put a spin on it. You have to say, all right, how am I going to say this in an entertaining way while I'm still saying here are my opinions on things. Sometimes I'll find something and go, that's a great story, but what do I do with it? Like, how do I make it interesting or funny? Like, it's just an interesting bit of news, and that therein lies the challenge. But I think Dave has done a brilliant job of finding guys who are capable of presenting those things in an interesting, opinionated way.
Do you ever regret that, since you were one of the very, very first people on board, you didn't get any equity back then?
Yes and no.
You should retroactively get some.
Yeah, but mostly I just say, look, I made a decision to jump off the train, and also with those obligations I had, like, I couldn't have just throw out a name like, say, KFC. I imagine when he came on board, he was a single guy, living in an apartment or whatever. So he could take the job without the benefits and all that crap that I talk about, no pension or whatever. But you know what? You say, I made decisions. I'm happy for them, and everything has just gotten exponentially better. Believe me, when I first got on board with this thing, and I just reach out to this guy who had an ad online that he's looking for writers, and his name was Portnoy, and I never heard of Barstool, and no one had. If I could have thought ahead and said, okay, in 2017, I'm going to be sitting here talking to AJ friggin' Hawk and doing a podcast once a week, and and doing nothing but this, working from my house, I wouldn't have bitched about that. So I have zero regrets. I
gotcha. Are you the oldest member of the crew?
Oh, it's not even close.
How old are you now?
Oh yeah, but that's got to come up. Sure. No, I'm 54.
That's not old. I know. You look good, man.
Well, I'm trying to maintain. When I was at EEI, I was one of the mid-range guys age-wise, maybe towards the younger scale. But this was also factored into my decision. You listen to sports radio, and I started, as I was debating, I was listening to the ads, and it was mostly for stuff that you hear when you're watching daytime TV. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like we had 3 ads for weight loss. We had 2 for hair restoration and 1 for divorce lawyers, with Barry Sanders, by the way, the greatest running back I've ever seen in my life, doing ads for divorce lawyers. And I'm like, okay, like, this is all skewing old. Like, when are we going to do the stuff for reverse mortgages or that power scooter you ride on by yourself? And so around that time, I was doing a book tour, and I stayed with some friends in Vermont, and their son had a Saturdays for the Boys flag. He was 15. Wow. I'm like, okay, this is sort of the universe telling me the future, even though you're 54, is talking to that younger audience that, in a few years, they're going to be 25. They're not going to be 75. And that shit counts. Like, the Stool has tapped into that demo. And the fact that I feel like I can talk to them without completely sounding like, Grandpa Simpson means a lot to me.
So, but when you were with EEI, did you have a daily sports radio show?
Yeah, I was on their drive time afternoon show.
So what time were you on?
2 to 4. And that was with 2 guys who had been together for years and years. And so they were a 2-man show. and there was a bunch of turmoil at the station, a lot of turnover, and they started splitting up some of their teams, and this guy got let go, and then he got brought back in, and so on. So they decided we needed to add a third element to this show, and let's bring in this guy who's maybe a little bit nuts, but he's in with this audience, this Barstool thing, and maybe a little bit not as careful as these guys are. And, it's kind of like, I'm going to make a real old reference. You always talk about how sometimes my references are old, even though like half the time I'm talking Stranger Things or Game of Thrones. Sometimes you bust my chops for being it's too old, but this is the only one that can apply. It's like when Fonzie moved in with the Cunninghams. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't living in the garage. I was like in their living room, like with these two guys who had been together forever, and they were good to me. They were super good to me. One's a broadcaster, one's a journalist, and I'm a guy with zero training. I didn't go to college for this. I just sort of backed into it. And the show was good. We were always consistently number 2 in the city behind this other sports show that's a friggin' juggernaut.
Is that with who's that?
My co-hosts were Dale Arnold and Michael Hawley. And Michael Hawley's written a bunch of books about the Patriots. He wrote Teddy Bruschi's book, and Dale is like the Bruins announcer. And the other show and the other station, whom before I got hired by EEI used to have me on once a week, and I would do a call-in from my old day job, by the way. It was great. I was on the clock calling in for a 10-minute segment with these guys, and it was great.
Getting paid by the taxpayers, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Wait, what did you do for the city?
I called it taking a late lunch.
Okay. What did you do for the state? What was your job?
I worked in a courthouse, dude.
What did you do?
I was a badge monkey.
What's that mean?
What you would call, what most states call a bailiff. I was in Mass, it's called the court officer, but really like running jury trials, like working where the prisoners are locked up, doing the all rise thing, like totally incongruous to what I was doing.
Wow.
And it was during that time that I discovered Barstool, and we went from writing one column every 2 weeks to a daily blog. I had to figure it out because I'm in this building with no Wi-Fi and shit. So I just was using my phone as a mobile hotspot and blogging in my like off time or during my lunch hour, and I got into so much trouble. I got into such heat with my boss, like they put me on punishment duty, and I just refused to quit because I said, again, 1, I loved it. 2, you become addicted to being able to put your opinions out there. And then 3, I thought, what if someday this can turn into a job? Like it was a crazy pipe dream, but it worked. So
here you are.
Oh yeah, nobody leaves those jobs, by the way. Nobody, because
is it because you get good benefits and retirement, or what?
Yes, massive amounts of vacation time, retirement, and all that stuff. So when I got this new boss again at the old day job who used to just say, "We're gonna say we knew you when." Because you're going to be moving on from this. I'm telling you right now. And when I left, they called me Caesar from Planet of the Apes. Like I was the monkey that learned how to talk, and like walk upright and crap. And there's a decision I've never regretted for a second. The chance to just not have to deal with the drudgery, not have to get yelled at by detoxing heroin junkies for 8 hours a day, but just to be able to try to entertain people. While there's challenges to that, there's nothing else in the world I'd rather be doing.
Well, you were to keep it Boston. You were the Matt Damon character, and Ben Affleck was all your coworkers.
Literally, I got that speech from a guy.
Really? Right? You're better than this, man. You're not like me. Every
day, I hope that I pull up and you're not there. A guy literally gave me that speech, and that really got me thinking seriously. And it's good. And I liked my job. Believe me, I can't tell you the last time I had a job that I hated going to, but it wasn't that one. I wasn't like, there were days I just sit there and go, my heart's not in it. I'm gonna mail it in because I can. But like literally, I'd be doing trials sometimes, and the lawyers would come up to me and go, "Hey, how do you think it's going?" I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I'm not paying attention. Like I'm just sitting here. I'm on my phone looking up stuff about the NFL, but I'm sure you're doing great.
Were you the guy did you hold the Bible and they put their hand on it and you swore them in?
No, that's a clerk's thing, and they don't do a Bible anymore. I know
it's probably not allowed. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, but I did do the judge, the all rise thing and stuff. But I just was never the guy who took it seriously. Like I have respect for it, but there's no way I wasn't gonna like try to make it fun for jurors to the extent that I can, still take it seriously and shit. But one time in particular, there was a murder trial. And me and one of my coworkers, we just kept obsessing over this one juror because she was a total smoke show. And the end of the trial, they come in with the verdict. Now, his brother, my coworker's brother, was the defense lawyer. And they're coming in with the verdict, and we're saying to each other, we're going to miss juror number 6. Oh, my God, we're never going to see her again after this. And the lawyer turns around and goes, my guy is on trial for his life here. What are you doing? You're like the Roman centurions casting lots for Jesus's robes. I'm like, I don't care about your guy. You're like, really? We're just a couple of horny oafs.
I love it, man. Wasn't it kind of, at least maybe early on, was it kind of cool being in, like, I think it'd be interesting to sit in on a murder trial.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always found that stuff interesting. Believe me. Hard too. Like I was only too happy to move to the kind of court, like the little local district one where it's just like OUI trials and stuff. Cause I didn't need that drama in my life. Like literally there was a famous murder trial around here where this woman stopped at one of those all night rest area places with like a food court and just got randomly assaulted by this guy and who worked there. And we looked at videos of the crime scene. AJ, I'm not that guy. I don't watch those shows. What's the channel that shows like all the murder shows, the investigation discovery or whatever? Not my thing. I don't need that drama. Some people are fascinated by it. To me, it was just like stuff I can't unsee. My old high school math teacher, his wife was murdered in a big state park. And 30 years later, I'm sitting in the courtroom for the murder trial. It's like, yeah, I just want justice for him, but I'm not that person who's fascinated by the process. It's just, life is too short, I guess. So when I was dealing with just trivial nonsense, it was like, okay, this is my wheelhouse. This is what I was put here to do.
Well, okay, so staying with the court system, why? Sure. Is the court system so inefficient and slow with everything?
It's, it's that old thing about the things you should never see watch made are laws and sausages, because the process seems terrible, but it's all because everything has to be protected. Everyone's rights have to be protected. You know what I mean? So if you're like the victim in a case, all right, you want that done tomorrow. But you're protected by the same rights as the accused, which I respect. So that accused has the right to have discovery, to get all the information that they can. You know what I mean? So I actually believe, having done this, as much as I act like I didn't, give two craps, I really have respect for the system. I think it does get it right. Not all the time, but most of the time. A lot of times when we catch something on the news and a guy gets acquitted, and we go, "What's up with those jurors? Why are they so stupid?" When you're there, you're talking to these jurors, you find out that a lot of times it's just the case wasn't proven enough that they, to reach that standard, and that standard's high, which is good for all of us. We're all protected by the same thing. The state has all the resources in the world to prove a case, and they have to prove it. And the onus is on them. And I think ultimately it's not perfect, but it's the closest to perfect that we're going to have. That's the end of my speech. That's the end of my diatribe. But I'm sincere when I say that people really do have reverence for it. As much as we all think that they're dopes on the outside, you talk to them and you realize that they have a burden, and they 99.9% of the time they take it as seriously as hell.
Well, that's good to hear. The one question that popped into my mind was what happened with the OJ jurors?
They didn't have the respect for it. They were the rare exception who, like, you know what? How old were you when that was going on? I'm trying to do the.
I do remember
middle school.
I remember the chase. When did it was a chase in '93?
Yes, give or take.
I was like 9, 10 years old. I was born in '84. I do remember the only reason I remember is because the power was out in our neighborhood. And I was with one of my buddies. And we were walking around the neighborhood to try to see if any other houses' lights were on. And then all of a sudden, we saw some lights on. We're like, oh, okay, let's go back to your house. And we got back to the house, and their parents had the TV on, and we were watching the White Bronco, and we were glued to the TV for the next 2 years, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah. A guy I was working with then, and this was before I was with the court system, had a great point one time. He says, "What would people be talking about if OJ hadn't killed those two people?" Because it was every day, it was every conversation. Like, what would we might have cured cancer if it wasn't for the obsession over this thing. That was a case where the judge let everything go sideways. Like, not to get into the details of it, but he lost control. There was, I remember one, like a housekeeper who testified. And they wanted her back on the stand a couple of weeks later, and she wanted to go back to her home in like Guatemala or something. And they had like a 2-day hearing to decide whether or not this witness can come. Like, no, stay here. Forget Guatemala. Like, this should have taken 10 minutes, and instead they spent 2 days on. They spent 2 days on DNA evidence. And at the end of the trial, the jurors are asked, well, what about the DNA evidence? They say, we weren't paying attention to that. Like, what? Like, okay, maybe 2 weeks on any topic is too much. You bring in an expert who says the odds of that not being OJ's blood are 1 in 100 billion. There are 7 billion people on the planet. Do the math. Okay, next witness. And there's no way that thing should have lasted months other than it was Hollywood. It was everybody affected. And that's another thing. Everything is affected by the TV cameras. As much as they like to think that it's not, once those cameras are on, if it was up to me, you'd never have them in the courtroom because it's the Heisenberg principle. Things that are studied get affected by the person studying them. You know, I've seen prosecutors act 100 times different because there's one little crappy local news camera in there watching the arraignment, and they play it up for the cameras. And in OJ, they all did. It was the ultimate Hollywood, L.A., California, American story, and it was a travesty. But that was the time they didn't get it right. Most of the times, even if they get it wrong, they're saying that the prosecutors didn't have a case. Casey Anthony, they just couldn't prove it. That's all it is, as horrible as the result was.
Yeah, you're right. It gives us all protection, but they're not going to get everyone right. Were you still working the courts when Hernandez was in there?
No, fortunately.
Would you have crossed paths with him?
No, but I will tell you this. A good friend of mine was the prosecutor who was involved in that. Yeah, wow. She's a district attorney. And, that one was – the first one was a guilty, and then the next two were acquittals. However, those two murders happened before the one that he was found guilty of. So you can see where that would be a tough one for the jurors to be able to process. Like, evidence grew cold. It was a shooting in an alley outside a nightclub. Even though I think in my heart of hearts he did it, I could see where in a courtroom where they can't talk about the one he got convicted of. They can't bring it up. You're trying to prove that a guy shot through a window of a car 3 years earlier when you didn't even know about it until after the third murder that he got convicted of. So that was a tough one. It's still bizarre.
It's so bizarre when you think about it. And to think that he's dead, he killed himself too, is even it's crazy how it seems like everything happened so quickly. I feel like from when they let him out of his house, like when they put a shirt over him. Remember, he entered the door no shirt, and they let him out. To now he's gone. Like, man, it seems like that escalated pretty quickly.
AJ, it was the craziest thing ever. Like, I go over to my brother's house to plan like a golf tournament or something, and his buddy goes, "Oh, how about Aaron Hernandez, huh?" I go, "I'm sorry, what? Like, what are you talking about?" "Oh, they're gonna accuse him of like murdering somebody." Like, what? if he had said, "Oh yeah, no, men from Mars landed on Aaron Hernandez's front lawn," I would have been less surprised than to hear he had murdered somebody. And everyone acts like, retrospect, "Oh, come on, they had to know." Like, he signed an extension with the team, and he handed them a $50,000 check to Robert Kraft's wife's memorial foundation. He just seemed like the nicest guy. Women loved him or whatever, but he just had that OJ thing, that ability to compartmentalize his life. Like, he played 10 NFL games after having taken a human life.
Did he really? Is that the timeline? I get it mixed up.
Yeah, because it was in the off season, and he played 10 games that year, and he got hurt.
So they came back and got him when he got arrested. That was so the murder happened. Then he played the season, and then they came and arrested him in the summer following that. Is that right?
Okay, no, okay. After having been in that shooting in the alley in the nightclub, okay. So then his buddy that he got convicted of murdering apparently was talking about it, or just he didn't trust him to keep his mouth shut, and it was like I should know this. It was either his girlfriend's brother or his sister's boyfriend, whatever, just someone who was in his like inner circle. And they took him down to a vacant lot and just killed him in cold blood. But so those prior murders happened in the off season. Then he goes and he plays the better part of an NFL season. So imagine how you would feel if one of your teammates you shared a locker with, you're doing practices, you're doing workouts and all that crap, and you find out afterwards he'd like taken 2 lives. Like, how do you process that?
You would look back like scared. I would look back like, man, I'm glad I didn't like get in a little shoving match with him at practice.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. And there's people probably among us. You know what I mean? Like, you never know. You go to, I don't know, like a town football game on Thanksgiving. You might be walking by someone who's killed somebody because you don't know this person.
Who's about to snap and kill somebody. You're right.
Yeah, and there was no indication, unless you want to really dig deep, and people try to suggest, oh, everyone should have known, the gangs that he traveled with. You had teammates who had been in gangs and stuff, right? I mean, how do you get an NFL team that doesn't?
And you don't really know who is being honest or not, because obviously people like to play up like the tough guy role, and like how people definitely at times certain guys will play up how hard they came up possibly too. So you don't really know what's real and what's not. Oh yeah. I mean, just look at how many white boys try to act like they're, totally from the wrong side of the tracks or whatever. Aaron Hernandez grew up in Connecticut. Now there's bad parts of Connecticut, but let's not confuse it with South Central. That straight out of Connecticut is not a thing. And there's now there was stories that came out all retrospective, like when he was at Florida, there was a shooting or whatever, or you should have told by the gang tattoos. BS. Nobody had the first clue, and it came out of absolute nowhere. And maybe some of his teammates didn't like him or didn't feel comfortable around him, but that's a damn sight different than saying, he strikes me as a guy who would kill 2 guys in a bar because they spilled a drink on him. Yeah, he's gonna go kill him in a lot, and then go back and destroy his DVR system on his cameras. I know. Yeah, and here's the thing too: is like, all right, you played for Bill Belichick. You'd think like you'd know a little bit about having a plan. He did not. Did he? No burner phone. No, he had witnesses. Like, if you're gonna commit a murder, this is the worst way to do it. And right, he smashed his phone, and then he tore out the hard drive in his home security system. Like, yeah, where is the gun though, Jerry? They didn't find the gun. What does it take to hide a gun? You throw it in a pond or whatever. But they searched everything. They dredged, but I mean, I don't know. Have you ever tried to contemplate like, how could I pull off like a murder? Let's say someone, just as a mental exercise, let's say someone did you really dirty. Yeah. And I won't get into specifics, but we all know the thing that we wouldn't want to lose, we couldn't stand to lose the most in our lives. What if someone took all that away and you had nothing left to lose? Like, could you physically, how could you pull it off? You'd have to act alone. The guy at the gun shop. It would be very, very tough. It'd be very tough. It really would.
everywhere you go now is on camera somewhere.
Your phone, you can't have your phone on you. You can't have anything on you. If anything electronic, your car, they could track whatever through the GPS, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I did a murder trial once where they brought in someone from the phone company who just triangulated the position of their cell phone as they drove from the city to another city because, all right, then it was picked up by this cell tower. And it was like, right, you can't, you're never off the grid now. You're never anonymous. So how do you do it? And Hernandez didn't even think in those terms. He just said,
That's even scarier, I think, that he didn't ever think of, like, yeah, I'll just kill this guy and then go to practice tomorrow.
Yeah. And he was such a good ball player. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously the real tragedy is one person definitely, and we think two other people died at his hand, but the life that he threw away, like, dude, you had it made. He had gotten the early contract extension that, right? I mean,
the Patriots don't do that either. That's the thing. They they don't overpay guys, and they gave him a contract that they didn't have to do.
How many guys did you had as teammates? The team came to them before the end of their rookie deal and extended them. Isn't that like gold? Yeah. Isn't that exactly what you go into the league hoping to have happen to you?
Yeah, and the Patriots that's very like out of character for them.
Yep, it's because they liked this guy. They liked what that whole two tight end dynamic that he had brought into the team or whatever.
It might have been. I remember playing against him. I think it was my 5th year. It would have been like 2009 season or 2010 season, I think. That may have been his rookie year. We played at New England, and if you remember, the one thing, so Matt Flynn started for us. We actually almost won. It was our Super Bowl year.
Oh, my God. Flynn played out of his mind. Yeah. Like, that was a time when they made every quarterback you'd never heard of look like friggin' 1999 Kurt Warner.
If you remember, I think it might have been Dan Coppin returned a kickoff like 85 yards on us.
Could have been
one of their O linemen.
Russ Hochstein, maybe.
You're probably I think you're right. Yeah. It's not Coppin.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And it was like I was watching from the sidelines, and I'm like, oh my God, the dude. Everyone was falling off. I'm like, this dude's gonna score, and he got to like the 5.
Yeah, that was phenomenal, and I think it was another one of those videos, and there was a Vince Wilfork interception return once that did the same thing, where someone did it to the theme from Chariots of Fire, the running theme, because they're just moving so friggin' slow that it looks like slow motion and crap. Yeah. All right. So did you actually had to guard him, or I know did they always put like a safety on him?
No, I think I may have had to. I know he scored a touchdown on us. I'm pretty sure in the red zone, because I remember watching him on film, and he was young. I remember watching him on film, like, this dude's not – this dude, he's a wideout. He's like a 260-pound wideout. We can't call him he's an absolute stud. Like, he is such a physical freak, or he was. It was unreal.
He was an adequate blocker, but you wouldn't put him as like an in-line blocker. That's the thing,
with tight ends, you don't need him to be. Like, the hard guy to find is that explosive pass catcher that can stretch the field. A blocking tight end, you find him anywhere, and you just throw him in when you want to run the ball.
Right, exactly. And he would get that. Sometimes he would be like an H-back, but definitely more of that like Jimmy Graham thing, or to go back like a generation. Kellen Winslow Sr. was that guy that they just almost never put.
Kellen Jr. was that guy for a minute.
Yeah, that's true too. I thought maybe the book on him, he would be a little bit more traditional than his dad, but ultimately ended up being just that dude. And so many NFL teams tried to copycat the Patriots with that two tight end thing, and they have been trying to duplicate it ever since, and they couldn't. And who knows what it cost. And again, all I care about is the human life, but what it could have done for the Patriots, for Hernandez himself, if he just, I don't know, crazy idea. Don't murder somebody. Don't go all Dexter on someone. Just live your life. Like, raise your daughter. You got a family to care about, and you're whacking two guys in an alley because literally the start of that beef was someone spilled drinks on him. It's so surreal. It's not the most egregious thing that's ever happened in the NFL because, who's the guy? Ray Caruth. Yeah. Like total hit job on his pregnant wife, and then OJ or whatever, but it's right up there, and it just makes no sense on any level. And all these times later, I still sometimes catch myself going, how the hell did any of that happen?
Yeah, it's like it's not real when you think back. But how do you think the Patriots handled it? You remember when he was first convicted or first arrested, they would try to ask him, and they literally, not one player would even answer a question.
Yeah, if Belichick has many geniuses, but if he has just one, it's the ability to eliminate distractions and not let them become bigger than they are. And a lot of people tried to lump that in as, oh, see, you think the Patriots are so great, you think they're so above it all. And my response was always the same. As soon as the first hint that he was involved in something, they cut his ass. His key card was blocked at the team facility. They told him, get lost. We want nothing to do with you. Then he gets arrested. The next thing they did was they bought back his uniform jerseys. Anyone that had bought an Aaron Hernandez jersey, they bought it back from you and gave you like another one, to the point where the Kraft family put up $250,000. It was like a gun buyback program. It was like to get these weapons off the street. And so then, it was the ultimate test of Belichick being able to manage the news. And he came out, and one of the rare times, AJ, he spoke from the heart. And he named names, and he talked about how horrible this is, and he just answered questions. And,
did he really? I don't know if I remember that. Did he in a press conference?
Yeah, and it was real kind of a informal setting. He spoke, and then he mentioned Odin Lloyd was the guy who we knew about the murder at that point. Mentioned him by name, and I think they. We always hear about politicians like handling a crisis the right way, and most of them don't or whatever. That should be taught in classes as to how to handle like a terrible situation that nobody could have anticipated. Now they caught flack from, and I've mentioned this to you and Pat, how there's local press that still like rips the Patriots every chance they get, and this old guy who writes for the Boston Herald who's been around for a million years. He tried to suggest like it was their fault. They had fired their old head of security and replaced him with this guy who all he had on his resume was doing the London Olympics. Oh, okay. All right. So the Olympics, the biggest terrorist target in the world, went off without a hitch in a small old city. Okay. How dare they hire this guy on the idea that the other guy that they fired would have known about this? Like, cut the crap. Like you cover the team. You didn't know about it. So I as much as I suck up to the Patriots, and I'm not ashamed to do that, I was never prouder than I was about the way they handled it. They talked about it. They did the right thing. They put up their own money and didn't try to spin it in any kind of way.
Yeah, I guess like a devil's advocate, people try to say they had to know something was up, or they knew about the college things that possibly he was involved in these shootings or murders. And how do you give a guy an extension? And when I thought, I'm sure they know like his background. They know, hey, he might have gotten a few fights or he's gotten some trouble. But I'm almost positive that they didn't think of, okay, we're going to give him an extension. And all teams will talk about, like, can this guy handle it? Like, if you give him a bunch of money, some guys can't handle it, and they'll go in the tank. They probably knew he'd be okay, but I'm guessing that's not one of the questions like that Belichick or Kraft were like, hey, but what if he murdered somebody? Should we give him like they did? There's no way that crossed their mind. Like, but what if he kills somebody? Like, that couldn't have been there.
Do you think he has blood on his hands? Should we? Like, I will say this: if I'm like conducting their interviews at the next combine, I'm going to include like, would you murder somebody?
Or have you?
Yeah, have you? I'm just curious.
It's okay. It all stays here, but have you killed somebody?
And I'm sorry to say this to an Ohio State guy, but I wanted Belichick to block Urban Meyer a long time ago, because those guys are boys. They go back. And the Patriots have drafted more shitbags from Urban Meyer programs. I mean, if there's a receiver, you'll never remember Chad Jackson, who's a total bust and a meathead. Yeah. Brandon Spikes.
Well, he's from Florida. That's Florida, though.
Yeah, exactly. And Aaron Hernandez was from Florida. Like, they had a really bad run of Florida guys. And Brandon Spikes, if you remember, was a productive player.
Yeah.
The first thing that he did after he came to the Patriots was it was leaked online, a thing he had done in Florida. It was remember chat roulette?
Yeah.
Okay. He had done a chat roulette video where he's naked and very impressive, by the way, with this girl who is an absolute dime piece. I mean, I'm not. If I was attracted,
did he have a sex tape? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It was a chat roulette thing that they had put out there. So that comes out while he's already been signed by the Patriots. So he has a tour of duty with them. They end up letting him go. I think he missed a practice because it was snowing out or whatever. They trade him to Buffalo. Buffalo lets him go. He comes back to the Patriots, and then at 3:00 in the morning, his OnStar kicks in because he had been in an accident in his like Lamborghini or something, some total friggin', land rocket. And he said he hit a deer, which is a different story than the family that he hit in his car and then abandoned the car said. Like, again, remember we were talking about you're never like off the grid anymore? OnStar realized he was in an accident. He had totaled his car saying he hit a deer. You can't do that anymore. So he was gone the next day.
So he hit a family like in a car?
Yeah, they were all okay, but his car was wrecked, and he gave this phony baloney story and then abandoned the vehicle. And OnStar's going, sir, what, you hit a deer? What is your location? All right, we're going to send someone out to your location. No, don't send anybody. I'm fine. And he just didn't have a story in place. Like, what do I do if I crash my car driving like a lunatic? And so he was probably on something. He was probably drunk. I don't know. But again, another one of those good Urban Meyer guys. Oh, and then they drafted Dominic Easley, who lasted 2 seasons. They took him in the first round, and they cut him. Florida's got a bad reputation with in this part of the country, believe me. And then we got Tebow, though.
Yeah, you did. What was it? Weren't you? That was one of Belichick's most surprising acquisitions. Was Tim Tebow? What happened there? Like, what was going on?
He threw some of the worst passes I've ever seen him out. Now, we never made it past the first cut, but I'm not kidding you. He threw one in a preseason game. It was like a rollout, and the receiver might have been 6 yards in front of him. And it was like when you throw like a Nerf ball at the beach and you haven't squeezed the water out of it. Like, it came out of his hand sideways. And I remember watching that going, this might be a solution to his problem. Are we sure that he's left-handed?
Yeah.
Just give him a pen and say, just sign your name with your right hand. If it comes out perfect, maybe we're on to something. But I think that was just, he liked the kid. Let's see what he can do. Unlike the Jets the year before, though, the Patriots completely just shut down all access to him. The first day of training camp, it looked like outside a politician's house if he gets caught in a scandal, like outside of Anthony Weiner's house. There's 10 million TV trucks and all these hard news reporters there. And they're like, Bill, I just want to ask about Tim Tebow. I usually cover hard news, but what is he doing here? And Belichick, his genius for just shutting down his stories. Well, he's just here to try to help the team. Well, how do you plan on using him? No, just here to help the team. Just going to coach the guys that are here. And like the next day, they were all gone. But he was just atrocious. I don't think he ever signed on with anybody else after that, right?
I think so. Yeah. Who was the backup though for Tom Brady at the time?
Oh boy, that was I think that was Ryan Mallett era.
So did Belichick think he may beat out Ryan Mallett to be the backup?
No, I just think maybe we'll keep a third guy.
Okay.
I like him. He's a good guy. Let's give him a look. Like, why not, or whatever. And it was wild for a while because wherever he goes, it's total the total focus of everybody's attention. But some of the most atrocious football I've ever seen. And tell me if you think this theory is completely off base. Do coaches in the NFL over manage quarterbacks? Like, everybody has to have their certain throwing technique. You have to have, your elbow up above your shoulder and all this other stuff. You have to step into your throws. Tebow played in basically the NFL junior, the SEC, and he had the highest completion percentage in the history of the conference, maybe the greatest college football player of all time And when he got to the NFL, they said, we're going to have to change everything. If they just let him be, could he have been productive?
I mean, I don't know, man. It's weird. Like throwing, as far as like mechanics and as a quarterback, like you can't really change anything. Like the one biggest change, I guess, that comes to mind. So remember when Aaron Rodgers played at Cal and he held the ball real high?
Right.
He still threw the ball the same way, but he had that high, like I think Tedford was his coach. Whatever reason, they coached that, and he held the ball high. You could change that, like when you drop back, just get in a more comfortable position, but he still had the lightning quick release in college, threw the exact same way. You can't, like, change your throwing motion. That's not going to happen when you're 22 years old. You can't all of a sudden go completely against what you're born with. That's just not something that you can do.
Yeah, see, they don't do that in baseball. Maybe they tweak a guy's like delivery, but if you're a sidearm, they let you be a sidearm. If you're over the top, they let you be over the top. I feel like with football, they say everyone has to be from the same template, and maybe if they had just let Tebow be, I don't know, like some guys have sort of unorthodox motions. I mean, Phillip Rivers, right? Does he just sort of cock it from behind his ear more than he should?
He definitely has a unique release. Yeah, you do. I don't know. Like, quarterback is also a position where you got to be in the right place at the right time, because there's a lot of really good quarterbacks that have gone to teams with no O-line and nobody to throw to. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who you put back there. They're going to get killed, and they're not going to be able to play well.
Oh, I'm a huge believer that it is a combination of quarterback and coach. Like, if Aaron Rodgers had been drafted by the Browns, I think Rodgers would have been pretty productive, but he wouldn't be Aaron Rodgers. I'm convinced, that he was in the right system, and you need that crap. But I do think they overanalyze it. Like I'm going to make a reference that's a million years old, but when Peyton Manning was coming into the league, it was him versus Ryan Leaf versus him. And like, clearly Manning was the better quarterback, but with like a week to go, I remember reading that the Colts were concerned about the way he grips the ball. He was a 5-year starter at Tennessee. Like, all of a sudden now it's the way he grips the ball is going to be the thing that's going to derail his career. And again, who's the best quarterbacks guru in the NFL? I mean, if Mike McCarthy had gotten his hands on Tebow, I feel like he could have done something with him. Mike
McCarthy would be very happy to hear you call him a quarterback guru.
Yeah, is that a stretch?
It kind of no. He coached with Montana at the Chiefs. He coached Brett Favre, Aaron. So I mean, he's had his resume definitely says that.
Sure, as opposed to, I don't know, like a guy who was supposed to be that guy but couldn't, with Chip Kelly. A couple of years in football and he's done because he couldn't. And you give Tebow to a guy with some sort of a track record. But you know what? I'll always remember that he won a playoff game against Dick LeBeau.
Unbelievable. How did that happen? That game was unbelievable.
Cover zero. They went cover zero on the first play of overtime. And he laid out Demaryius Thomas, who made a great catch, and there was no one there to tackle him. It was still one of the all-time greatest moments I've ever seen in the history of the world. And that's when you said, Tebow really does have Jesus on his direct messages.
He did all right in baseball, didn't he? He finished the whole season this year, didn't he?
He did, and he hit home runs, and he saved a couple of lives. He kind of had this weird thing where people would be like overcome in the stands, and he would lay on hands, and I think there were people in wheelchairs, and they were getting up and walking.
He's like Steve Martin. What's the movie? Leap of Faith? Have you seen that?
Oh my God, I saw it once.
It's a great movie.
A faith healer, right?
He's like the traveling faith healer guy, and it's all a scam. They all wearing earpieces, and they set up, but he's like, "You're healed," and he travels around. They set up a tent, and he saves these poor communities that come in and dump all this money at him, and he acts like he saves them.
Dude, I love that you just made a more obscure reference than I have. That is such a deep pull.
That's an old man. That might be like late 80s or early 90s at the latest, I think.
Yeah, emphasis on the fact I watched it once. I don't remember ever going back and revisiting.
I've seen it a couple times. I don't know why that movie just got me. I've seen it multiple. That movie would Shawshank me, as the term that you like to use.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I'd put it in the top 20 Steve Martin movies, but cool.
I was a fan of that era of Steve Martin, I think. What was the other one? My Blue Heaven, is that right?
Okay, yeah. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels he did around
never
there.
Never seen that one.
Okay, not great. Roxanne was kind of his one that I think that's the one where it was Cyrano de Bergerac. He had like the big nose.
Oh, no, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
I'm not into that.
Yeah, it was more cute than whatever.
Well, Father of the Bride, that was good.
Sure. Give me Planes, Trains, and Automobiles any day of the week and twice on Sunday. The greatest Thanksgiving movie of all time, and it's not even friggin' close.
Yeah, that Planes, Trains is amazing. Three Amigos was great too.
Love that. God, I'm trying to think of. Okay.
Now he just plays the banjo to sold out arenas.
Yeah, some dudes just can't handle being funny for a long period of time.
What do you think of his old stand-up?
Oh, he was groundbreaking. He really was.
What was he doing? Was he like a physical guy? What was he doing?
A lot of, but it was all sarcastic. It was. I guess meta is the term I'm looking for. It was sort of deconstructing stand-up comedy. Like, I'll never forget having my cousin tell me, I'm watching The Tonight Show last night, and this guy comes out, and this is before he ever heard of Steve Martin, and he says to everyone, okay, people tune into this TV show at all different times, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the worst punchline in the history of comedy, and I want you to all laugh like it was the greatest joke ever. So people just tune in and will go, what the hell is going on here? So the punchline was, okay, ready? And in the middle of it, he just goes, and so I went to the refrigerator and I opened it up and there was a clown in there. And the whole audience just rolls in the aisles laughing. And it was so weird and offbeat. And it was a new thing that nobody had ever done before. And, and he pulled out corny shit like an arrow through his head, that you just wear over your head. And so that's what he was doing, and it was like push comedy forward in a way that hadn't been done before. And then he broke into movies, and the Jerk. You ever seen that one?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I like the Jerk. That's old. But I actually, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Classic. I was born a poor black child or whatever, and that one still has legs. But yeah, his comedy was not just. Hey, and then where does the sock go in the dryer? And hey, why does a dog stick his head out the car window? It was a whole weird kind of self-effacing thing. And then he creates that character, the wild and crazy guy, which again was that whole sort of parody of doing comedy. And I total respect for him. I just wish he tried to be funny more instead of just saying, you know what, I don't need this crap anymore.
Why did they quit then? Like, he comes to mind, Steve Martin, who was selling out arenas back in the day. Eddie Murphy, not anymore. Like, why? Is it too hard? They don't want to go just grind and come up with another hour?
Yeah, dudes want to be – that's probably it. And there's pressure to always be funny. Look at Dave Chappelle. I mean, Dave Chappelle burned white hot for a very short period of time and then just couldn't hack the pressure. I think with a lot of guys – being funny isn't respected, so they have that need to try to be serious. Look at Tom Hanks's career, and nobody doesn't love Tom Hanks, but when was the last comedy he did? And he broke in being hilarious. I mean, sure, like, Bachelor Party, which I think he won his first Oscar for. Or was it Forrest Gump?
It had to be Forrest Gump. I don't think Bachelor Party got him an Oscar.
He deserved one for Bachelor Party. It was great, but he did like Splash, and he did Dragnet.
The volcano movie. What's the volcano movie?
Joe versus the Volcano, The Money Pit. But then those guys, and this has been a beef of mine for a long time, look at the Oscars and show me the love that comedies get. Like, you can count on the fingers of your hands the comedies that have been nominated in our lifetimes. And they act like it's real easy to do. Well, no, it's not. Like, look at this the stuff that great comedic actors do and say, can Daniel Day-Lewis do that? No. Steve Carell in 40-Year-Old Virgin, he gets no respect, but then he does the Wall Street one, The Big Short, and he gets nominated. So the point is, if comedy was easy, everyone would do it. And I would rather see a comic actor pull off being serious than the other way around. And
it's tough. I think those dramatic actors I've heard you hear them talk about it. Like, they're scared of trying a comedy. It's so difficult to actually be funny in a movie, especially that's why a lot of them won't try it. And the guys that can act, there's very few people I think that can shift back and forth between funny and like dramatic acting. And the one who I think was the greatest ever, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus, yeah. I'm like his by comedy, just saying like him, like Big Lebowski.
I'm talking like Along Came Polly. That character will live on. Sandy Lyle will live on forever.
Great. Okay, because he was one of the funniest bits in Big Lebowski. It was a small role, but okay, yeah, he could. And so acts, as the greatest dramatic actor of our times, to go the other direction and do comedy. Good friggin' luck to you. But when you see guys that you are hilarious that can put Michael Keaton, Michael Keaton's early movies were friggin' hilarious. There's an obscure one that is tragically forgotten called Night Shift.
I've never seen it. I know of it. I've never seen it though.
He's just a Michael Keaton character, and he friggin' gets a job at a mortuary and turns it into a prostitution ring. And it's genius. But what does he get like credit for? That stupid Birdman one, which was just
Did he win atrocious. For that? Did he win?
The movie did. Did he?
I don't think he did. I think maybe someone else in the movie may have won as well, and the movie won, but not him.
Yeah, or they gave it to somebody who, to win an Oscar, the formula is you need to play someone who's got a handicap, or a drug addiction, or cross-gender, or whatever. It's just never someone who just acts really well. It's always someone who has got some affliction to overcome, or
deformity or something. You're right.
Yeah, but nobody is gonna win anything just for being hilarious, and it's a friggin' tragedy.
Well, that's because the stupid the panel or whoever the Academy is that votes on this stuff. They're all they just have they puff themselves up as this is art and you don't understand the process and all this, and so that's why no good movies ever win.
That's it, and it has to be about we're trying to make the world a better place. How about just
no? You're not. You're not.
Entertaining, right? The last person that won for a role that was really totally entertaining in a popcorn movie was Heath Ledger in Batman, and he had to die for that. If he was alive, he doesn't win for that.
You're right.
Flat out.
You're probably right, man. He lived that character.
Made a completely implausible character realistic. But again, if he was sitting in the audience in a tuxedo, they would have given it to the guy who played the guy in a wheelchair who paints with his foot, or played Stephen Hawking or whatever. And there's one other way, by the way, AJ, to win Oscars, to be nominated, is to play a masshole. That is the total hotness in Hollywood.
Well, it was not anymore though, right?
Well, I mean, 2 years ago it was Spotlight. Okay, that won Best Picture.
Did Michael Keaton get nominated for that?
Well, it won Best Picture, and it was the Boston Globe.
That was a really good era for the Boston people.
Oh heck yeah! The year before Ben Affleck wins, and he's a Boston. He wasn't playing a Boston guy, but he Argo for Best Picture. The Fighter, the Mickey Ward fighter movie, everyone was nominated for that.
Christian my bad. No, The Fighter. I'm thinking the wrestler Mickey Rourke.
Okay, yeah, but not a Boston guy. But Mickey Ward is from Lowell, Mass, and that movie's about him. And that was Donnie Wahlberg stretching his art by playing a friggin' Boston guy.
Are you guys? Are you Boston people? Are you done with Wahlberg? Are you sick of him, or what is it? I know he left the Super Bowl, so you guys are. Yeah, you'll never turn back to him.
That is absolutely a grudge. I've never bought into the. You watched the show about the hamburger place, right?
I've seen a good amount of them. Yeah.
Okay. I coached a kid who's friends with his nephew or something who was like a fan of Barstool, so I don't want to say too many negative things about him, but to be in Tom Brady's face after he wins the Super Bowl against Seattle, you're the greatest of all time. No, you are the greatest. And then 2 years later, be bailing because Tom Brady, the greatest of all time, is down by 25 points. Kind of unforgivable. I'm not asking a lot. I didn't think they were going to come back, but I wasn't going to miss a play. You had to leave, and then he said something about, my kid was sick. Oh, come on. It's the lamest excuse in the world. If they were up 25 points, guess what? Here, kid, suck it up. Mom's got some Advil in her purse. Just swallow one of these. You'll be good. Daddy's staying here for the celebration. And had they won, he would have been, and he was still there, he would have been in Brady's face again going, I told you 2 years ago. Oh, shut up.
Well, wasn't back when Affleck was having all those issues with his wife, I guess they're divorced or in the process, wasn't he like on the plane with old Tom and Giselle and his girlfriend?
Private jet. Headed, I want to say, to Mexico. But it was Brady and Affleck and the nanny. Oh. Affleck's hot nanny wearing Brady's ring.
Really? Was there a picture of it or something?
Yeah.
Who put the picture out?
That's I don't know if it got out. I don't think it was like Instagrammed. Oh, I think the nanny did.
It had to be. Yeah, no one else in that plane would do that.
Right, exactly. And so then,
my gosh.
I'm flaking on Affleck's ex-wife's name. She was an alias.
Jennifer Garner.
Yeah, Jennifer Garner. And so, yeah, she did what any wife in the world would do, unless you're part of one of those swinger groups, which clearly not many people are, not many attractive people are. She took exception to that, and it turned out that like the hot nanny had been hanging out with them a lot. I imagine trying to push that past Mrs. Hawk. Okay, I'm going to be taking the nanny on a private jet with Aaron Rodgers and me down to like I've never had a nanny. Did you ever have a nanny?
No, we need someone, but no, we don't.
No, nor have we. And if we did, think Mrs. Doubtfire. Like that would be the ceiling. Would be Robin.
A man that dresses as a woman? Is that what you're saying?
No, like that level of attractiveness.
Gotcha.
And just with the hairy knuckles that Robin Williams have. Speaking of Robin Williams, by the way, a guy who was a great comedic actor, even a better dramatic actor. Give me him in Good Will Hunting over him in Good Morning Vietnam any day of the week and twice on Sunday. And he won the Oscar for that, playing a masshole. Talk about tying together a lot of loose.
That's a good point. You're right. Robin Williams is definitely up there for a guy that can cross over.
When he's not being super like annoying and throwing a bunch of things against the wall and hey, I'm going to do a million impressions. When he was just a dramatic actor, he was friggin' phenomenal. And yeah, so so getting back, like Affleck, his wife allows the super hot nanny. And
wait, did she know that was going on though? Did she know that they were on that plane ride together?
I don't think so. I think she found out from the nanny posting that and just sort of did the math, and maybe he had like lied about where they were or whatever. I don't.
What would be weird is if Tom and Giselle have like no Affleck have any kind of relationship, they'd be like, wait, why? No, like this is weird. She can't come on the plane.
And believe me, my Irish Rose was like, what is Brady doing in that situation? I'm like, I don't know.
See, I'm
friends with a guy. I'm not going to sit there and judge how he lives his life. I don't know.
You wouldn't, but if you had, I guess it depends on how close you were. Like that scenario you brought up that said like, oh, we're on a private plane with Aaron, and all of a sudden I get on the plane without my wife and some other girl. Aaron would kick both of us off the plane. Like, absolutely no, this isn't happening. But it depends. Okay. It also depends how close they are and how well they all know each other.
Yeah. See, there's the thing. I just don't know that I would be the one to tell my friend this has to stop. It's kind of like that's where my loyalties lie. And I know I've had some buddies who married women I was not a fan of. I don't judge. That's your life. You go right ahead. But if they cheated, I'm gonna take their side. Flat out. You know what I mean? You shouldn't cheat, but I'm going to take your side because you're my friend.
You got to pick. Yeah, in divorces, like I'm sure you've had friends that have gotten divorced. Like you and your wife have to pick sides, right?
Fortunately, we haven't been in that situation. I've had a lot of buddies get divorced, but it was never like any split loyalty. It was always where, he's my friend.
Okay.
Not her.
It'd be weird, wouldn't it, if you were real close to a couple and they split up and you're like, all right, we kind of have to draft who. Are we drafting the wife or the husband? Who do we stay with?
I hear that all the time, and I don't know. But imagine trying to choose like the right from wrong. Like who did who? Oh yeah, no. And it's happened with casual acquaintances, and I always just like hands off. Like thank God we're not like close to them, and I have to pick a side. The lesson is just don't be a bad spouse.
The
real
message
easy.
is don't marry a crazy person.
Oh God, yeah. I when I was in the courts, I spent 6 months at family court, and nothing will make you want to be father and husband of the year than a couple of days of that stuff. Because oh God, like I used to call my mom from the courtroom, just going, "Hi, Mom, it's me. What's going on? Nothing. I just love you. Just want to say I love you." Like, what's wrong with you? You sound like a crazy person. Nothing. I just.
Are you gonna kill yourself, Gerard?
No,
Are you gonna kill yourself?
I just had the greatest family ever. Not sure I really let you know that, but
thank you for my upbringing.
Yeah. Flat out, and then just go home and go. That's never going to be us. I'm never going to have a big, thick file full of things, documents that we have to know about, and financial statements and lawyers making money off of our misery. Like, whatever I'm doing wrong, let me know, and I will correct said wrong and do the best I can here. It's miserable, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jerry, I'm about to. I just have a couple more questions, but I wanted to ask about your oldest son. He is a Marine, correct?
Thanks, man. He is. Yep.
And how old is he?
He turned 21 while he was overseas this past year. He went right out of high school. In fact, he came to us, back up a little bit, really bad student, smart kid, terrible high school student, and we couldn't get a straight answer out of him about college or whatever. It turned out he was just waiting for the right time to tell us. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He had talked to guys who had been in the Corps. He had talked to a Marine recruiter. We tried to steer him towards, well, how about some military colleges? We took him on a tour and stuff. There's a couple that are, in New England. He's like, yeah, it's great. No, it's not what I want to do. So we signed the early papers for him to go in as soon as he got out of high school.
So was he 17? Is that why you have to sign it?
Yes, exactly. So that was so he wouldn't be waitlisted. So he basically had the summer of his senior year, and when all his buddies were going off to college, he went off to Paris Island in South Carolina, which is 13 weeks of just intensive, just molding the mushy little boy that I had raised into a friggin' fighting machine.
Now, when he first presented you and your wife with that, how did you guys respond?
She broke down in tears.
Right in front of him?
Oh, yeah, flat out.
He was probably prepared for that, though, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and he said, look, I want this because I don't want to be like my friends sitting around the house, their parents' house, doing bong hits on Snapchat or whatever. I want to go away and come back and be a different person. He never got into trouble or anything like that. I don't want to paint a picture like he did. And he said, I want to come back here and call you sir and ma'am and be something that you're proud of. So, you go down to the building downtown Boston where they ship them all out, and it's for all the military. In fact, I know a guy who's just gone off to the Coast Guard Academy at the same place, and they ask them all, like, so what's your reason for enlisting? And they turned to my kid, and he said, because I want to be part of something bigger than me.
Jeez.
I know, huh? I know. It's something to listen to out of a kid that, a couple of days earlier going, would it kill you to make a bed? Like, really? Like, why am I cleaning up half empty cans of Diet Coke everywhere you go? Like, what the hell? But he knew exactly that, and he didn't want to go Army. He didn't want to go any other service. He was signed up for the Marines, and that was it.
Does he want to make it like a lifetime, like a 30-year guy, or what?
He's not saying that now. He pretty much is ready. His tour will be up sometime next year, and he's been away since July. This has been like the longest time he's been away. It's the first time he won't be home for the holidays. And the impression he's given us is that, he's going to do his 4 years and then call it. Then there's options out there. There's, some guys get into like private security for a while, do a bunch of work. I know some people, friends of, a family of friends that are in like the Department of Defense who maybe can steer them into some kind of a discipline. But really what he said from the beginning, everyone in his outfit just wants to go be sent somewhere to kill bad guys. They don't want to be in North Carolina. They want to just go into the fire. And I disagree. I'm all about keeping North Carolina safe for democracy. It deserves it. But he's in Japan now. So the other day he was there when Trump landed and gave him the speech. And then, well, actually, he was in Japan as of a few minutes before we started. He texted and said, "I'm 15 minutes south of North Korea."
Ooh.
I know, huh?
Is he staying there?
Yep. He's going to be there for like a month or so. And that was a couple days earlier than I thought he was going. And he'll fall off the grid for a while because, he doesn't have Wi-Fi, or he's sleeping in the rain for a week or so. But and then I'll hear from him randomly. It's like 3:00 in the morning his time, and I'm watching a Patriots game, and he's going, "Oh, I love the way the defense looks." Like, where did that come from? Like, hello,
Jeez, was he noticeably different from when he left to where he came back after those 13 weeks of basic training or boot camp, whatever you call it?
For a little bit. Like, I'd heard from people like trying to discourage the whole thing, like, who knew people who were like damaged from battle or whatever, going, "Oh, he's gonna be a different kid." Like, we get him off Paris Island, and all he wanted was to just get something to eat. And we're standing like in a Subway restaurant because that's what he wanted, and he's standing like at ease and like totally like stiff or whatever. And it took him about a day to just become himself again. Like, he's still sarcastic. He still talks about his commanders the way he talked about his teachers. Like, really, he's bigger, he's got more tattoos, he's more muscular, but he's still the same kid. Like, thank God. Like, it didn't change him in any kind of appreciable way, except made him kind of just a better, more together guy.
Wow, you had to be kind of like, was that like I don't know, were you torn, I guess, when he came to you with that? Because sounds like he had such a plan, had this like higher purpose. Were you torn like, man, absolutely, I do not want my son being put in danger, but at the same time, you have to respect it too?
Yeah, I more like said, all right, how about this, honey, to his mom, like, all right, he's given us like a compass heading anyway. Like, we don't have to say necessarily commit to the Marine Corps right now, but let's try these other things. Let's try these alternatives that are similar, military school or whatever. But ultimately, just he sold us. I said, there's an old, expression, like my in-laws had this on a sign in their barn. It said, "Never try to teach a pig to sing. It just annoys the pig, and it doesn't get you anywhere." Like, he doesn't belong in a college classroom. He belongs in uniform. He belongs carrying a rifle. And even like the Corps, when they give you your I forget what the acronym for it is, but it's basically your discipline, your area of expertise. They were saying, "Oh, you could drive a truck." And he says, "I didn't come here to drive a truck. I want to be infantry." And they said, "Okay, you're infantry." And then they said, "But don't tell anyone. We're telling other guys that we don't have any room in the infantry because they're idiots, but you will be infantry." And so he's gotten, he got promoted to corporal, which is something. He got a medal, like one of the highest medals that they give for non-combat for what he did in training or whatever. And so he definitely found his niche. It's just whether it's going to be a career, it kind of doesn't seem like his thing now, but he'll do things that are related to it. Maybe he's talked about being a firefighter, which gives you a leg up if you got military service or whatever, maybe a cop. I don't know. I just want to get him back. I just need the universe to friggin' behave itself.
Yeah.
For a few more months, if another year. I just need Mad Men to stop launching missiles at people and see how that goes for a while.
Yeah, good luck with that. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see how that plays out. But
dude, you got any military in your family?
Not like
your folks or grandparents.
Like my grandpa was in World War II, was on a few different ships that got sunk and everything. He's my one. Of my four grandparents, he's the one that has died. He died like maybe 15 years ago now. But he was like on a couple ships that got sank.
Wow. Hey, look, if you're on a ship that got sank in the 1940s,
yeah,
and you make it to the 2000, you got to sit there and go, all right, not a bad run. And both my kids' grandparents were in the war. My dad was on a carrier, and my wife's dad like wrote his memoirs about being in Patton's army.
Wow.
And stuff like that. Yeah, and I think that sort of helped inspire him. And AJ, I don't know where we keep getting young people like this, but we do, and thank God we do. You keep thinking, we're gonna run out of these guys, and everyone wants to rip on millennials. F that, dude. I have met the nicest, most together people in the world who are like 21 years old right now. And I was a mess when I was their age. So I will die before I say a bad thing about millennials, especially after meeting those guys down at Paris Island.
Yeah, it's like anything else. It's just the turds are the loudest ones. So that's who we see and hear. We don't see all the ones like your son. We don't hear them because they're just going about their business, living their life.
Right. And you had them when you were in your 20s, and I had them when I was in my 20s, and they existed 1,000 years ago. So let's lay off the ones that were born in the 90s and act like somehow we lived in this perfect world, because it's BS.
Yeah, there's just more platforms that these kids can put their stuff out. Luckily, there was none of that. When I was 12, I couldn't. There's no videos of me when I was 12 of posting my selfie videos talking.
Oh, thank God. Thank God Almighty. Believe me, I would have had to like run away and live in a foreign country if I was on tape when I was that age.
It'd be very, very embarrassing to have to go back and see some stuff. Oh, let's see what I posted 20 years ago today.
Dude, I don't even want anyone to see my prom photo. Long hair and my ruffled shirt and crap.
Hey, it's good. That's all coming back now. Well, Jared, where can people find you if people want to go check you out, all your stuff?
Yeah, I am on at Jerry Thornton 1. I'm on Barstool 3-4 times a day. I also got jerrythornton.net. I'm going to be posting all my appearance dates and links to where you can buy the book and that kind of crap. And on Laces Out, for crying out loud. Dude, I'm having such a great time doing our thing. I love that Barstool put it together and gave us this little homework assignment, and it's the friggin' highlight of my weekend every week, man. I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Oh
God, you kidding me? I love it, and I think the good thing is too, like the more we've done it now, the more like people get invested in it. I think, and they love, like, it's just obviously it's fun for us. It's not like a job. It's fun. We get to talk about the games, which it's released every Monday morning. We record late Sunday nights, sometimes very late. and sometimes we actually go before and after we record for as long as the show is.
Dude, the other night, it was an hour before we pressed record.
Yeah.
And then I think we talked for 20 minutes afterwards. Like we sounded like 9:30 because it was a super quick first half of football. And I think I went to bed at like 2 a.m. It was insane,
I went downstairs and my wife kind of woke up and she's like, "What time is it?" I'm like, it was a long one. I don't know what happened.
Well, just working. Just
grinding away. Just paying for this house.
Yeah. It's just no friggin' idea. But it's a blast, and I totally appreciate having two actual NFL guys have been in the war, letting me in on the little rocket ship to the moon, given the fact that my only qualification is I have a laptop.
That's right. You got a voice. you have great ideas. You have your vocabulary, and you have references that Pat or I have never heard of.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna keep those.
Just keep coming up with these 1960s and 70s shows that we've never seen.
Dude, I make lots of them about the 2000s, about current stuff.
You are up to date. That's a good thing about being you're 54, you said, but if you hang around younger people, it keeps you young. It really does. I think it extends your life.
Dude, it's effed up when I go places and college guys want to just say. I did an interview today with a guy who's studying sports journalism at Syracuse.
Awesome.
I'm like his school project. And then I heard from another guy who wants me to do the same thing. So as long as they're asking, I talked to a UNH law professor who said the other day he writes for Sports Illustrated. So does their legal stuff, and he said, "Who gets their news from Sports Illustrated?" No one raised their hand. ESPN, a few people. Barstool Sports, every hand goes up.
Wow.
Yeah, you and I are plugged into the right outlet, my friend. I appreciate it.
Their fans, the fans of Barstool Universe, are heavily engaged, which is that's why it's so big. It's why people like to market there. They want people that are engaged, not just people that are casual fans.
Brick by brick, brick by brick. But we're going to take over the moon, man.
Old Portnoy knew what he was. He had a plan all along, so he's executing it with many bumps in the road as he goes, and you guys just continue to your arrow points up.
Beats working for a living.
That's awesome.
I don't feel lucky because I've earned it. Worked for a long time for no money. Quick reference: Peter Dinklage. You know him, the
little guy.
Yep. There's a picture I save, and it's a quote from him saying, "When I was." If people say I'm lucky, and he goes, I don't buy into that because when I was, I think of that guy in the apartment in Manhattan. He's talking about himself with no heat and no light and not much to eat because I refused to take jobs playing like the elf in a commercial or whatever. Like I earned it, and I feel like everyone at Barstool earned it, man. We paid our dues. We kept giving people real entertainment and didn't take any shortcuts, and I no intention of ever letting up on that.
That's awesome, man. All right, Jared.
Right.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming on here. I'm looking forward. We'll having many more Laces Out shows with you, but thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it, AJ. And listen to us on Laces Out and follow us at Laces Out Show.
Bam. There you go, Jared. True pro. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
We're glad you could join us for today's conversation. After you subscribe to the show, head over to thehawkcast.com or reach out to AJ directly on Twitter at @officialAJHawk to recommend future guests that will help us inspire people to keep talking. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you next time on the HawkCast.